Hi, my name is Josh Rosenfeld, and this is why I think that mixed martial arts is the fastest growing and most exciting sport in the world. So, first, I'll give you a brief history of mixed martial arts. People have been practicing martial arts like wrestling for over 15,000 years and sports like boxing for over 5,000 years. The sport of pankration was introduced into the Greek Olympic Games in 648 BC. This is the sport that most closely resembles mixed martial arts. It was an empty hand submission sport with the only two rules being no biting and no eye gouging. And these rules are actually the same as the Ultimate Fighting Championship, or UFC, when it first got its introduction to the world in 1993. So when the UFC started, it resembled more of a game of roulette in an attempt to find out which martial art was the best. Fighters that were specialized in a certain martial art would fight someone with a different style, but this would get out of hand since there were no weight classes or regulations. So this means you might see an all-time great kickboxer fight a WWE style wrestler, and as you can imagine, the results tended to be pretty brutal. So after a lot of backlash about the ethics of the sport, the UFC introduced regulations like weight classes, equipment, and time limits. And after doing this, they were barely surviving financially. But in 2001, Dana White and the Fertitta brothers purchased the UFC. And with their leadership and management, the company went on to gain big sponsorships and pay-per-view deals, which, along with their brilliant marketing, has helped the sport of MMA grow more than any sport, and the UFC grow more than any other sports organization. What is mixed martial arts today, and how does it work within the UFC? So, MMA is a sport, UFC is the organization. Fights are held in an octagon-shaped cage instead of a boxing ring, which is square. The fighters can use a combination of any and all martial arts, including wrestling, boxing, jiu-jitsu, kickboxing, karate, judo, Muay Thai, etc. Fights consist of 5 3-minute rounds, and if it is a championship fight, there are 5 5-minute rounds. In between each round, there is a minute of rest where the coaches can talk to their fighter in the corner. For the men, there are weight classes from flyweight, which is 125 pounds, to heavyweight, which goes up to 265 pounds. And for the women, there are strawweight fighters at 115 pounds, and that goes all the way up to featherweight at 145 pounds. And there are multiple weight classes in between each for the men and the women. So now I'm going to go on to why I think it is the most exciting sport in the world. Although it can be extremely hard for some people to watch due to the blood and the fighting aspect, everything going on in mixed martial arts is extremely technique based and has been described by experts as a chess game between the fighters. The stakes of the sport are very high, making every move and counter move extremely vital. Since this sport is as close to life and death as any sport can really get. There have never been any deaths in the UFC itself from a fight or as a direct result of a fight, but of course there has been deaths in martial arts just due to its extreme long history and violent aspects. Not only is the sport more technique driven than it is influenced by brutality, but mixed martial artists generally have immense respect for their opponents before and after the fight. That doesn't mean that there isn't trash talking and bad blood, but that's also what makes the sport extremely exciting as well. It is a one-on-one sport, as you know, so each fighter must take responsibility for their own performance. This gives the fighters also a chance to share their personality with the audience and the fans, which is another thing that brings people to love the sport and its athletes. The UFC is also extremely competitive in both male and female divisions. Each fight or fight card includes both male and female fights, which are scattered throughout the night, and the order is dependent on the importance of the fight, so championships will be at the top on the last fights of the night, and the main card, undercard fights will be the ones under the main card. Compared to a sport like boxing, UFC fights actually get more views, but they don't get paid as much as boxers, which I think is extremely unfortunate due to the amount of risk that they're taking. But the main reason that boxers get paid more than UFC fighters is they don't belong to an organization. Boxers have their own promoters, which don't take a huge share of the money. In mixed martial arts, the UFC is the main market for the sport, so fighters either have to belong to the UFC if they want to make any money, or there are some other smaller mixed martial arts companies. But the UFC takes a large portion of the revenue made by fighters to pay the company's employee staff and facility staff. Um, but in addition, things like gambling are also extremely popular with the UFC, and it's only another thing to help the sport grow even more. And finally, probably my favorite aspect of mixed martial arts is that it's extremely global, and different countries will boast a different style of fighting. For example, Mexican fighters are often great boxers, Russian fighters are amazing wrestlers, Brazilian fighters will often have black belts in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Thailand has Muay Thai, Korea has Taekwondo, and Japan has Judo, and it goes on for tons of different parts of the world. So there's so many examples of specialized martial arts coming from different parts of the world, and that's what makes the UFC and mixed martial arts so unique. And that's really the main reason why I love the sport, and I think it'll continue to grow worldwide and in this country. And thank you.